Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Emily Kady, a spiritual medium and intuitive channeler whose profound near death experiences have shaped her path in remarkable ways. From her first near death experience as a toddler to a life altering experience in 2015, Emily has embraced her gifts to help others navigate their spiritual journeys. Emily, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Lady Lopez, for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Absolutely. It's an honor to have you on today, and thank you so much for coming on the show. Emily, we have a lot to unpack today. I'm very fascinated by your experiences, but I know that your first experience was when you were only 18 months old. Wow.
Yes, it was.
Do you have any memories of that? Can you share a little bit about that experience?
Absolutely. I had very little memories of it. What happened was I had a ear infection that spiked my fever where when I ended up I stopped breathing. And my parents, I grew up in a small little town in Northern California. My parents rushed me to the local hospital as a little blue baby because I had no oxygen. And the doctor resuscitated me because I was without oxygen for, I don't know, 5, 10 minutes, however long it was. I don't know specifically. I ended up in a hospital for a whole week in an oxygen tent to help mitigate any brain damage that was caused. I do remember being in the oxygen tent. I don't remember details, but I remember seeing my sisters coming into the hospital to visit me and like I couldn't touch them and seeing like the little plastic tent that was separating us and feeling really isolated. That's the only memory I have of that. So I don't have a memory of transitioning over, but there was brain damage caused from that, which really altered my life in the way that I functioned.
During your first near death experience, or maybe after your near death experience when you're 18 months old, did your parents ever tell you anything about it, or how did you find out?
Yeah, my parents had told me about it and they just talked about me having a high fever. Usually I think they were telling friends or family, and that's how I think I found out about it. Is remembering them telling the story of rushing me to the doctor and I was blue and
Mm.
just the stress it caused them. So
So then, growing up, knowing that you had this particular experience, how was life to you growing up? Do you remember being different from other kids, like maybe having imaginary friends where other kids didn't have that? Can you talk a little bit about that?
absolutely, I did. I could see and hear spirits. They were always around me. And I knew that I couldn't talk to other people about it because I never could see or hear them.
Mm.
I remember I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. And I remember sitting in my mom and dad's living room, and there were at least 30 voices going on in my head at once. And this had happened a few times before. I usually always had like one that would be talking to me, but a few times before it was like multiple voices. And this, I remember this specific day, and I had 30 of them. I'm like, you guys, I can't talk to you all at once. You're making me feel like I'm going crazy. This is a 7-year-old saying this. And I'm like, I didn't even know what going crazy was like at 7, but I felt like I was going crazy with all these voices. And I couldn't have a conversation. It was like all this sound of, and there were actual voices talking. And so I'm like, please stop. And they immediately went silent, dead silent in that moment. And I did not hear him again until I was 19 years old.
So, growing up, did you have any religious background, any religious beliefs that you were being raised with?
I didn't. My parents both were raised with different religion. My dad was Catholic, my mom was Protestant, and they were, forced by their parents to go to church. So they decided when they were going to have kids that they weren't going to force any religion and allow us to explore it on our own. So there was no religion or anything. However, I was always curious. So I would go to church with my neighbors because I was just curious to find out a little bit more about. Jesus always curious. I was curious about for some reason. So as a kid, I would go to church, and meanwhile the rest of my family would never go, and they're like, "Why is she going?"
Like, what's going
So
on with her? Why is she
no,
not?
most kids are not wanting to go to church, and ours wants to go.
Exactly. There's something going on there.
Exactly.
All right.
Yes.
So fast forward to 2015. You went through your teenage years, your early 20s, and then 2015 rolls around and you had another life altering near death experience. So can you walk us through what happened, what was going on at the time in your life?
Yeah, so at that time of my life, I had 2 seven-figure businesses. I was one thing that happened to me when I did have my first NDE was I had brain damage. So that caused learning disabilities. And from a very young age, I couldn't read or write, I couldn't comprehend. And school was really challenging. And my mom always said, like, I was the happiest baby until I went to school. And then everything shifted because it was just pure anxiety for me. I couldn't fit in, I couldn't relate to anything. So I self taught. I figured out how to overcome my learning disability. And by like fourth, fifth grade, I could function in school, but I worked twice as hard as anybody else. So my parents never thought that they would get me into college. They thought if we can get her to graduate high school, we did good. Well, I had to prove them wrong. And so I forced myself into college and just pure exhaustion, just exhaustion because I mentally it was just too much for my mind. But I was in this place of always trying to prove my worth. So from a young age, I wanted to show that I fit in. And so I had started these 2 businesses and was doing it truly out of trying to show my worth to the world. They were successful. I was exhausted. I was burnt out. I was also married to a man who I had wanted to leave for 7 years prior, and I didn't know how to leave the marriage. I couldn't. Part of the problem was I'm an empath, and if you know anything about empaths, if they don't know that they're empath and they don't have healthy boundaries, they tend to take on other people's problems. And so, like, my upbringing, being somebody with my learning disability, rather than just radically accepting who I am and that I have a different way of learning, I tried to, I knew I was disappointing others. And so I tried to fit in so that I wouldn't disappoint them. And here I'm in this marriage. My whole life had been living for everybody else but me. And I'm in this marriage and I had been wanting out of it for 7 years and I couldn't get out of it because I knew it was going to devastate this man. I was so exhausted and depleted, lady. I had nothing in me, nothing to give. Like, if I envisioned myself back then, the inside of me was just black. Like there was no life inside of me, whereas the outside of me looked like everything was perfect. I had these businesses. I had, a marriage that seemingly seemed perfect, and it wasn't. I was living a facade. I was living a lie. So the day that I had my near death experience, I remember I was going to a doctor's appointment for just a simple procedure. And I'm driving the doctor, and this is the weird thing is I hate going to the doctor. I absolutely hate it. Like any way I can avoid it, I will. And when I go, I am always stressed and nervous. But on this day, I was calm. And I was shocked how calm I was because I'm never calm going to the doctor. And I was like, this is weird. I'm like, I like this. I like that I'm calm. I remember thinking that to myself. So I get to the doctor, and the doctor does the procedure, and I have this adverse reaction to the medication she gives me. And I literally went into a grand mal seizure right there in the exam room. As I was seizing, I remember right before seizing, I was trying to ask for help, but my mouth wouldn't open. Like nothing would come out of my mouth. I couldn't move. It felt like I was just about to faint. And if you've ever fainted, everything just feels awful. But it was like 100 times worse. It was so awful and I couldn't move. I was like paralyzed and I just wanted to get some help and I couldn't ask for it. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I like leave my body and I'm in this dark black tunnel. And it's so euphoric. I feel amazing. There's nothing like this feeling that I experienced. I'm floating in space. It's limitless. It's nirvana. It's a unconditional love that I've never experienced. You just can't experience this love down here. Not to say that we're not loved, it's just different. And as I'm floating up, I have no connection to my physical body. I don't know what's going on with my physical body. And I'm up in this black tunnel, and I like to think that, it's this black tunnel with the white light and the silhouette, just like you hear. It's exactly what I experienced. But I like to think of, on this plane, in this 3D realm that we're in on Earth, if we're in a dark alleyway at nighttime with a light at the end of it, the alley and a silhouette, you'd be filled with fear, with like stress. Your body would just go into fight or flight mode. Here, I was in euphoria. It was this love. There was no fear. And as I'm floating up, I see, or all of a sudden I realize, oh, I'm transitioning. I didn't realize I was transitioning. I had no clue at first. I'm like, oh, I'm transitioning. And then I think, oh, my mom, my dad, and my dog, Buster, they're going to be so devastated when they find out. And this is the empath part of me, worried about everybody else. And so I think of that and I'm like, oh, wait. For the first time in my life, I felt whole. I felt like I couldn't feel their pain. Whereas as an empath down here, I can feel everyone's pain. It's like in my body, their pain, their grief, whatever emotion they're experiencing, I can feel it physically in my body. And there I couldn't feel it. So I had the thought, because that's who I am, of they're going to be in grief and I can't go. And then all of a sudden I realized I was detached. I was attached but detached. I was whole for the first time in my life. And at that moment, the moment I realized I was whole and I wasn't connected to them in the same way as I am on the earth realm, I saw 3 timelines and they look like old thermometers that has liquid mercury in it. And or the mercury in it. I don't know if it's called liquid mercury. But as I'm looking at it, these 3 thermometers or timelines are stacked. The mercury was the marker of how long each of them would be in critical grief. And I could see it was only a portion of their life. It wasn't the balance of their life. They could still, at a certain time in their life, have a smile on their face and enjoy life again. So I was like, great, I can go. They're going to be fine. I'm ready. I'm out. So I start moving up and I'm like fully ready to go. And as I'm starting to move towards this silhouette, all of a sudden I see this energy force come at me. And this energy force literally pushed me back. So I'm falling backwards now. I'm no longer floating forward. I'm falling backwards at a rapid pace. And I'm forced right back into my physical body. When I wake up in my body, I have amnesia. And I have no clue who I am. I don't know this woman who's my doctor. I don't understand why she's yelling Emily. I don't know if she wants to hurt me or help me. I don't understand anything. I literally felt completely out of this world. I did not have any connection. The exam room is so stark and startling by itself, but it's confining. In the spiritual realm, you're limitless. There's nothing to hold you back. Down here, you're limited and you're confining. And so that, like, the walls of the exam room, I remember just feeling so like tight in this space and felt so uncomfortable. I just was like, get me out of here. I do not want to be. But I couldn't even tell you where I was. I didn't know if I was in the spirit realm or in the physical. I had no clue, no concept. It took me about, I would say, 10 minutes to 30 minutes to really orientate myself back to, okay, I think I'm Emily. I think she's here to help me. I don't understand who she is still, but eventually it did come back. I was never the same after that experience, so I changed dramatically.
That was an incredible experience. Unfortunate that you had to go through another NDE, and as traumatic and life changing as it could be. I do think that there are other ways to develop your psychic gifts and wake up.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, there are
This is
muscle
not a
healing.
way I suggest.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So going back to your experience, Emily, coming back to your body, you briefly mentioned that you felt confined in the room, but how was it coming back to your body? Do you remember how that felt?
It happened really fast, but it hurt.
Mm.
It really hurt. I just I don't know if it was just the seizure, the body from the seizure, but it just everything felt so tight and
Mhm.
confined. Whereas in the spirit realm, everything is just wide open. It's like so expansive, the energy. So my doctor, she resuscitated me. She literally had to do CPR on me and a mouth to mouth to bring me back into my body.
So you flatlined?
I guess I don't. Yeah, I don't. I can't remember any details of that day. And whatever the doctor said to me, I mean, she rushed me to the emergency room. I was like literally out of that room in an emergency room before I knew it.
Yeah. You mentioned also that you felt a force, an energy force, push you back in your body. Now, many people who have had near death experiences, they describe encounters with being of light and, profound sense of love, just like you mentioned before. Besides of the energy force, do you remember meeting any other beings?
I did not meet any other beings. I didn't go like I was
Mhm.
going towards one, but I never made it there
Mhm.
because that force came back to me or came to me and pushed me back into my body.
Tell me about your life after your 2015 NDE. How was it coming back and integrating that experience and going back to in a way, your previous life? Can you walk us
Mm.
through how you handled that?
Yeah, I was a different person. One, my brain worked really slow before my brain, because as I said, had a learning disability. And I learned how to overcome it, and I put myself in I would always say I was in overdrive. I was just always going, and I got to my after my NDE, and having a seizure, your brain just changes. So my brain was moving like molasses, and still to this day, sometimes I have a very hard time connecting the dots. It's just slower. It's a lot slower. And I came back, and I remember within 6 months, I remember going back to home and seeing my husband and not connecting to him at all. And within 6 months, I left the marriage. I had wanted to leave it for 7 years prior, and I couldn't. And after that, in 6 months, I was out, and I didn't shed a tear. It's like I didn't even know who he was anymore. And then within a year and a half after that, I had closed my two businesses. I needed to get out of those. I knew that they were out of alignment with who I was. It wasn't me. It wasn't where I was supposed to be in this lifetime. My whole life I had been building a life on a facade to show off that I was worthy. And here now I come back from this NDE, and I see that that's not who I am. And I'm supposed to be here for a different purpose, even though I didn't know what it was right away. But I knew it was not what I had created. What I had created for myself was just like all I see is like a ball of tangled yarn is what I had created, and I didn't know how to untangle it. And so after my NDE, I had this more, I don't know, ascended aspect of myself come in that was like, oh, it's easy. Just let's untangle this mess and get you on the right path. So parts of it was easy, like that, which would have been hard with me before, but other parts were not easy because coming back in and knowing and feeling that euphoric state and living in this really dense world, there was a really hard time. Or at least I had a really hard time integrating and understanding how to live out my purpose. I went through some really heavy depression, and my spiritual gifts have always been there, but they really lit up after my NDE. And I just remember arguing with my guides to let me just go home. I was done. I'm like, I don't want to be here. This is heavy. Why am I here? And they kept telling me, it's not your time. You have a purpose here. And if you choose to leave now, you're going to have to come back and relive this again. Do you want to do that? And I was like, no. So I started to dig in deep to really find out who I am, why I'm here, and overcome this heavy depression that I was facing.
You mentioned that coming back, it was as if a higher aspect of your soul came in and replaced your previous soul. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So, this is kind of a controversial topic. I had a walk in. So, there's not a lot of studies out there on walk ins, and there's a few different trains of thoughts or beliefs on walk ins. So, some people, walk ins happen when either you have an NDE or a traumatic situation or even surgery. You could have a walk in. It's when there's like a little crack, and it's like a crack in the bell that the soul can transition and a different soul will step in. I have a friend that had a walk in, and her walk in, it happened when she was on a massage table during a massage, and it was like a very deep, like a kundalini awakening. It was like a table that was lined with crystals, and she was having spiritual work done on her. And her original occupant left, her soul left, and a new walk-in came in that was not even her. A completely different soul came in. Some people, there are trains of thoughts out there that people say that cannot happen. I don't know. I don't know what can happen. Anything can happen. My experience in the spiritual realm, we are limitless. So I don't put limits on anything, but I understand our minds sometimes have a hard time conceiving it, you know? But my friend, when it happened to her, it was like she also broke up with her spouse right away. But the change of food and music, everything changed for her. She didn't even connect with her mom and dad. She still to this day doesn't even call them mom and dad. So that is one aspect of a walk-in. Mine is sometimes considered a partial walk-in because it wasn't a completely different soul. My original occupant, she created that mess, the facade of trying to prove her worth to the world and living for everybody else, that she just was out. She's like, I'm out. I can't do this. Whereas a more ascended aspect of myself came in to help me navigate through so I could live out my purpose. It's essentially a spiritual awakening, a kundalini awakening. You shift. You're a different person. You still have your ego. You still have who you are, but there's something in you that has completely shifted and disassociated with who you originally were. Do you understand?
Yes, I do. I'm actually familiar with the term. I've heard other people describing it as pretty much we have a vessel that is going to become available, and then that soul that is in the vessel, meaning the body, chooses to leave, and another one comes in so they don't have to be born and go through. Learning how to walk, learning how to speak, learning how to do all the human things that we do, and just pick it up from there. Would you say that's right?
Right. Yes, that's how my friend experienced it,
Mhm.
for sure. A different soul came in, whereas mine was more of a, nope, this is your purpose. You're here for a reason. We got to just pull a different aspect of your soul in to help you
Mhm.
navigate and get through this.
I see. So, how could someone that has gone through a traumatic experience or an awakening, how can they know if they are a walk-in? Is there any way to know?
That is such a good question because people don't know. I didn't know. I didn't know, but I knew I was different. I knew I had a really hard time acclimating to my life, and things shifted for me. So I started part of my healing journey because I was going through the depression. I was trying to navigate this, like, you still have your ego, you still have your ways of doing things, and then you have this different aspect. So there's like two parts of you, and they're just not assimilating. It takes a minute to assimilate and connect and become in harmony with each other. I started to work with different spiritual healers because I did not know what was going on. And I had multiple healers, none of which knew each other, tell me I was a walk-in. And so from my experience, a lot of people do not know that they're a walk-in. They feel like they're going crazy. They face major depression. Their family members don't understand what's going on. The family members see something's different about them, but they don't know how to connect the dots. And so it happens to a lot of people. A lot of people go through it without even realizing it because there's no like definite way to identify it. But if you're feeling like you've had a traumatic experience, again, it doesn't have to be an NDE. It could be just a car accident. I have a friend that was in a car accident and she had a walk-in. This is a different friend. I had, you know, people with spiritual awakenings, kundalinis, that shifted their perspective of who they are. And so, but they come back and they're not able to assimilate and identify it. So understanding, okay, I don't connect fully. You're probably a walk-in. And it's best to find somebody to work with you to help you connect and assimilate the walk-in so things can go smoother for you.
That is an interesting point that you made there. I remember when I was going through my awakening in 2012, it was, a very dark time in my life. Like people call it the dark night of the soul. And
Mhm.
when I went through that experience, it was the first time that I ever meditated. But then when I came back from that experience, that everything happened, I started looking at things from a different perspective. So I'm not gonna go as far as to say, "Oh, I'm a walk-in," because really I have never been told that. But yeah, when you have spiritual awakenings, in my personal experience, a Kundalini awakening, everything changes, and you don't know sometimes who you are when you come back, because things that you used to fit your reality before then, you come back and you're like, "Did I really like that? Was that your experience?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I was looking at my husband going,
Who are you?"
huh? Exactly.
Yep.
But even like music, my
Mhm.
music taste changed. Like everything changed.
It's a major change. But I did
Yeah.
interrupt you and distracted you a little bit. I wanted to take you back to when you came back from your near death experience back in 2015, integrating everything, your experience. You were telling me that you at the time had a seven-figure business, two seven-figure businesses actually. And I heard you in another interview say that you basically sold everything. You left your husband with nothing but your dog and other things. And then you moved.
A car, a dog, a car, and a computer, and nothing. And I didn't have a way to make money.
Mhm.
I just had to go. I had to go.
That is
I had,
a huge shift in your life. So tell me, what was going on in everyone's mind? How did your family take this profound change in you? And how did you deal with it?
that's a good question. I don't know how my family took it. They probably were shocked, but they probably kept their opinions to themselves. And I needed to hibernate. Everything in me felt so off, and I didn't know how to manage. I really didn't. I literally had nothing, but I have this ability to manifest stuff and I'm very grateful for it. So I was able to manifest a home that was walking distance to a beach. I felt amazing that I could do that and live there to start to recover. But I went back and I started to go to work for a job that did the same thing that my businesses were. And that's not what I was supposed to do, but I needed to take care of myself. I needed to make some money. I had nothing. So, yeah, it was just a crazy time, but I wish I would have taken more time if I was able to not work because that's a whole other journey in itself. That took me back, me not trusting. You talked about the dark night of the soul that you had. That's what I was in, a dark night of soul. I had to like be stripped clear of everything and start fresh. And I stepped back into my old ways of, what my skill set was to make money and survive. And I really should have, at that moment, at least looked for a different avenue of income.
But then again, when you're in that situation that you need to put food on the table and it's on you,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
sometimes we have
Keep a
to
roof over
the
your head.
matrix, every now and then.
Right. It's true.
Mm,
100%. Yeah.
yeah.
But it wore me out. That was really a tough thing.
Mhm.
Again, my brain was not capable of keeping up at the pace that was needed for that job
I see.
because I had yeah.
When did you notice your spiritual gifts? I know that you had a near death experience at the age of 18 months old, and you were able to connect with spirit. You were able to reconnect or, communicate with them again at the age of 19, I believe you said. But did you notice any additional gifts that you didn't have before after your 2015 NDE?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been able to connect with spirit and I could see him, I could hear him, everything. I today I can't necessarily see them. I can hear him. I can see him through my third eye, but like I could physically see him before. Now I don't have that gift, but my gifts are very strong. I can really easily access the 4D, 5D, 6D. I can go up into the spiritual realm super easily and see what's going on. Access people's Akashic records, whatever it is. I can see energy and work with it to help people, help myself, help people, whatever it is. Transmute energy that maybe there's some energy that's stagnant, is
Mhm.
holding people back. I can work with that energy to clear it and help bring some movement for people.
Yeah. And you mentioned something that I think is very important for us to remember. And it is that just because when you start connecting with spirit, you connect to your spirit guides in one particular way, doesn't mean that it's going to remain like that forever. It will change. I struggle
It
with that
adjusts.
too at the beginning of my journey in the spiritual community because I used to connect with my spirit guides once I realized who they were. I used to connect in one particular way and then it started changing and I'm like, what's going on? What happened? What is this? I don't know this. Let's go back to what it was. So I believe that as we improve and we continue to work on that connection, it does change. And usually, at least for me and from what I can see for you, it changed for the better. It amplified your abilities.
I'm curious for you, when you're saying like you used to work with your spirit guides one way and then that changed and then you had to reorient how to work with them. I'm wondering if you had a change of your spirit guides.
I recently found out that I did.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking happened to you. And
Mhm.
so they work differently. And so you have to know how to, they,
Mhm.
and the more you hone in your skill and evolve, the more like serious they are.
Yeah.
I've found that's my own experience. Whereas like the first round, they're easy and fun
Mhm.
and playful. And the second round's like, let's get down to business. I don't know if that's what your experience has been
Yes,
like.
yes. My experience of my first guy that I consciously connected with when I was meditating, it was a male energy. He would tap on my shoulders and not on my shoulders, but anywhere in my body. So I would say in meditation, if you're here, touch my right knee. And then there was like a muscle twitch, but not really a muscle twitch. And then
Uh-huh.
that went away. And I'm like, what's going on here? And then they were quiet and they were quiet. And I'm like, you need to do something because what's going on? So it turns out that yes, I have a new spirit guide and I'm still navigating on how to connect with her. And there are more
Mm-hmm.
coming in. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
going on. But yes, that's pretty much what happened to me.
They do. They will change. We only our birth angels stay with us for the whole life. But mine, I know too. My gifts of seeing. I do believe I live in a very high density area in Southern California,
Hmm.
and so I believe I don't see it for my own protection because of how many spirits are in the area, as well as my brain and everything may be little well, it's just too much energy.
Oh,
So if I was to move back to Northern California in more of a, mountain setting where it's a little bit more peaceful, I
yeah.
probably would get it back to be able to see the spirits again. And I'm okay not seeing them. Not that I get scared, but they're all around.
Now that we are in the topic of your work, you do specialize in helping empaths and highly sensitive people. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you think they face, and how do you guide them through those struggles?
That's a good question. Empaths, at least from my own experience and the clients I work with, we have been consumed with taking on everybody else's emotions and feelings, trying to protect other people, that we've lost sense of who we are. The biggest thing is we are actually disempowering people when we're taking on their emotions or not speaking our truth because we don't want to hurt somebody. Like, I'm an empath through and through. And I know there are times I don't speak my truth because I know how the other person's going to respond. And I know I'm going to feel it in my body. And I don't want to feel it. So I will choose to bite my tongue. But by doing that, I'm disempowering myself and the other person. I'm enabling the other person to continue down the path that they're on. I'm blocking them from their own spiritual growth, their own growth of whatever growth, whether spiritual, emotional, mentally, whatever it is that that person needs to go through, by not really speaking up for myself. And it's finding our self-worth, loving ourselves, and speaking up for ourselves.
We have been using the term empaths and throughout the whole conversation. You and I know what an empath is. You and I know what it feels to be an empath, probably you more than me. But for someone who doesn't know that they are an empath, they're struggling with their emotions, they're going through depressions, they're going through the trenches. What advice would you give them as far as like how they can find out if they really are an empath or if those emotions that they're feeling are truly theirs?
I love that question, lady. Yeah, empath is somebody that is a highly sensitive person. Your sensitivities are really high. Big crowds can impact you, loud music can impact you, just a lot of energy can impact you. And you also feel people's emotions. So you're sensitive to a lot of energy, it's overwhelming, and then you feel people's emotions. And it's like you're a sponge. You feel it. I believe everyone can feel everyone's emotions. I think that's just, it's something that happens, but empaths take it on as their own. So, ladies, you're asking me here about, asking if it's your own or not. And that is one of the most powerful questions is when I feel sadness or anger or something, I will always ask, is this mine? Because it could be my neighbors. It could be my partners. The other day, I woke up and I was like in the flow. I was in such amazing energy and I was so happy and like everything was flowing. And then I had a conversation with my partner and he was not in the flow. And his energy brought my energy down. And I was like, whoa. And it was not a fight. It was just where he was at emotionally. I took it on. And I was like, this is not mine. And he has taken me out of the flow, and I'm not going to let that happen. So I recognized it, thank God. And I am like, I transmuted that energy and got rid of it. I didn't give it back to him. But I set a boundary with him. And I said, I understand where you're at. I understand you're frustrated with whatever you got going on. I need to focus on me because I was in such a great place for taking care of my clients. I was like, oh my God, it's hard to get in that flow sometimes, especially right now.
And
So,
and that I think that is one of the hardest things to do as an empath, recognizing what is yours and what is not. And of course, as we practice, we get better at it. But when you don't know, when you're not aware,
you don't know. Yeah.
yeah, and at least in my case, I wanted to take on people's battles and fight those battles for them and be their,
Yes.
superwoman and whatnot. So I
Right.
had to draw a lot of lines, and I started pushing people away because I was like, "Ooh, your energy is gonna affect me." Like I was gonna take on that. So that's another, the opposite end of the spectrum to where you want to make sure that you're not isolating yourself and keeping people out because you don't know how to set those boundaries.
Yes, understanding. I had a friend who she had shared with me early on of like when I know I'm going into a situation with people that I know their energy doesn't mesh well with mine
Hmm.
and I don't want to take on their energy. She goes, you got to just go in with expanding your energy out. Like walk into the room as if like envision your entire energy field just flooded with energy So your energy field can literally take up an entire room. It can take up as much space as you want. Just set the intention and envision it. Like I'm right now, I'm envisioning me taking up a lot of room, and I can feel my energy moving out of my body and expanding out. And she says, as you do that, then when you're crossing these people that are trying to take from you your energy, it's like I love this analogy. She said, it's like taking a drop of dye and putting it in an ocean versus putting a drop of dye in a glass of water. So you want to make yourself as big as possible with your energy so that drop of dye will just get diluted out and not even have any impact on you.
That is beautiful. I love that.
So then you don't have to isolate yourself.
Exactly. It took me a long time to understand that and learn how to set proper boundaries, but here we are.
Right. It takes all of us. And I do want to go back to your point of like, I remember when I was always emotional, always crying. Everybody's like, we cry all the time. And it's just empaths have a lot of emotion and we don't know how to manage it. I don't anymore because I know how to manage it. I've regulated my whole nervous system. Like my nervous system was out of whack because I was taking on everybody's emotions and I had no clue. And I remember people always like psychics telling me, you're an empath. I'm like, what does that mean?
I am
What
what?
does that mean? I don't know what that means. I have no clue. But yes, understanding if you are an empath and you are taking on other people's emotions, you don't have to. They're not yours to carry.
That is true.
It's practice.
Mhm.
And it feels really good and liberating once you do it.
Oh, yes, yes. It's as if a weight was lifted off my shoulder when I was able to finally break through and recognize what's mine and what's not. But not everyone is like that. Many people, Emily, may feel disconnected, not necessarily about their empathic abilities, although that could be part of it, but also their intuition or purpose in life. So, what advice would you give someone looking to deepen their spiritual awareness?
Well, self love, really slowing down and knowing you are worth it. You're worth loving yourself. If you can slow down, connect with yourself, and I'm not saying meditate. Not everybody is a meditator. I love meditating, but I have many clients that cannot, they're like, that is not their thing at all. Do what you love. Schedule time every day to do one thing you love. And it could be for 5 minutes, it could be for an hour, whatever. You have to schedule time to take care of yourself. By doing that, you get to know who you are. You start to reset your nervous system, and then your spiritual gifts will start to develop. The biggest thing I have found in developing my spiritual gifts is really clearing out my root chakra. And a lot of people don't want to be in our bodies. We've been so programmed to be just in our heads and always thinking, right? And logical, and it's really, the magic happens when we're in our bodies, when we really go into our heart. Our heart has just as many brain cells as our brain. It's been scientifically proven, but there's this disconnect. And if we can go into our body, then we can really activate our spiritual gifts. And it's from such a beautiful place. And it's so sound and just, I don't know how to explain the difference. I was somebody that never really wanted to be in my body because I can easily access the spiritual realm. But the times that I've really made the effort to get into my body, that's when my spiritual gifts really blossomed on a whole new level.
Emily, I wanted to ask you a question that I like to ask my guests who have had NDEs. I went to the IANS meeting here nearby a couple of months ago, and the guest was there over Zoom. They were sharing their experiences and what they learned from it, similar to what you and I are doing. And then it was our turn to ask questions. And there was this particular lady I will never forget. You could see the despair, the confusion, the pain in her soul through her eyes. And she was wearing a cast, and you could tell that she had some sort of accident. She didn't share that at the time, but she stood up and asked the person who was sharing their experience. She said, I recently had a near death experience. I went to the other side and came back. So you could see that her life was basically turned upside down and she didn't know what to ask. She asked, what now? What do I do? Where do I go from there? So, for someone in that situation, say one of your friends was going through that, what advice would you give them?
I would highly recommend to take the time they need to get oriented into themselves, back into their body, back into their life, and not to rush anything. I would hire, this is what I did, I hired people to work with, experts to help me, anywhere from therapists to spiritual mentors to really help me understand this world and where I fit in. Because I really did go through a Great Depression. When you experience that and you come back and you're like, what is this for? This energy here in the 3D realm is really dense, but she has a purpose. It wasn't her time. And so I would really encourage her to find the right mentors to help her get back into her life path of what it is that she's supposed to be doing here.
Yeah. There's so much help out in the world now. It's not like 2012 when I was going through, my experiences. And when you went through at least your last experience, the spirituality community, at least to my knowledge, was not as readily available
It's,
as it is now.
yeah. Yeah, we went through it at a time. Like, I never talked about my NDE except to my family. And I had to because I was like, I don't understand what happened. I knew what happened. I knew it was an NDE, but I was trying to like put words to it
Yeah.
for years. Was that the same for you?
Well, let's just say that I haven't talked to my family about it. They'll find out eventually.
With your podcast,
Right.
maybe.
So, they're very Catholic, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to challenge their beliefs, and I don't want to impose my
I
belief on them.
understand.
So I believe that whenever that conversation needs to happen, whenever all the parties involved are ready for that conversation, it'll happen. I have an amazing relationship with my family, my mom, my sisters. My dad is in spirit now, so he knows.
Mm-hmm.
And, my husband and his family, of course, they know my kids. We're raising them, trying to raise them spiritually awake. But my side of the family will have that conversation when it needs to happen. So that's what I believe. So they don't know.
Do you have any connection with your father or not?
Since he passed, he came back to me in a TikTok video out of everything. And then he came back to me in a dream. But, I know where he's at. I've been to the waiting room of that,
Mm.
that void. So I know that he's in a magnificent place, that the love that he's probably feeling right now is just you can't put words into it.
Mm-mm. No.
It's just a beautiful.
I think it's beautiful that you had the
Hmm.
visitation,
Yeah.
the dream visitation. That's really powerful.
Yeah. And I told him, just when he passed, I said in my mind, just go to the light, do your healing, do what you have to do, and then when you're ready, you can come back to me. But he came
Mm.
back to me twice. It's been gone for 2 years, almost three, and everything is fine. Now, speaking of the departed and death, or not death, but transition, for those struggling with the fear of death, what insights from your NDEs do you think might help them find peace and overcome that fear?
You know, there's nothing to fear. And I know these words could fall flat on many ears because I remember having fear of death. It is so beautiful on the other side. And it's like, it happens so fast. It really will happen like in an instant. You don't even know how you transitioned the veil. But once it happens, you're whole. And it's so euphoric. And like I said, I felt whole for the first time. I felt like I was going home. I felt like I was going home. What we have down here is we have this separation. So we have this attachment here in this 3D realm to people we love. There's grief and there's things that hold us. They just hold us in a way that we don't have in the spirit realm. You don't have grief in the spirit realm. You have love. There's honest. I am so sorry, lady. That's hard to put words to. It's just so beautiful, but there really truly is nothing to fear. I think the hardest part is those of us that are left behind. That's because we're the ones that have to grieve. But those that transition, they are in such a beautiful place.
Yeah. And they're always with us. Our loved ones, I believe they never leave us.
Oh, they are, yeah, they are with us. And I'm a medium. I talk to those that have transition all the time. And just the other day, I helped a client. Her father was earthbound. He died in a tragic motorcycle accident and he was earthbound. And I helped him transition to the spirit side. Um, but he was kept coming to my client. It was like, help me, I need help. And she kept trying and he couldn't do it. So she hired me to help him. And um, they will come for help if they need
Hmm.
it. If they can't, if they're stuck. Like he was in a tragic accident, so his soul didn't even know what happened. He was stuck here.
So that is the perfect segue to go into your work. Can you tell us about your work and where can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah. So I work with in the spiritual realm with whatever my clients need. I specialize working with empaths, like you had mentioned, because my heart is with an empath. I'm an empath, and I know what it's like when you're just so emotionally imbalanced and overwhelmed and just exhausted by life, and really helping them find clarity, like clear out all of the emotions of other people's that they've been carrying and be able to understand who they are, feel themselves for the first time, and navigate life with a clear mind and healthy boundaries. I do this through light codes and light language. I do all the activations that clear their energy and activate to help bring them into alignment why they're here. That's my heart. I love working with people to really help them find their power and get back into why they're here so they can fulfill their life purpose. Right now, I really feel like we're going through this massive shift and the consciousness on our planet is rising. We're bringing out I think they say it's like 1 billion people are going to awaken spiritually in the next 10 years or something. So, with this rising consciousness, things are shifting dramatically. More people are going to have Kundalini awakenings. More people are going to have NDEs to help bring them into alignment with their purpose because there's a bigger plan here than what we've been living and understand. So if I can help just one person understand why they're here and for them to fulfill their purpose, that has a ripple effect and helps so many other people in this planet. And that's all I really want is to help bring the consciousness of the planet up and help people navigate it.
That is beautiful. And where can people connect with you?
My website is emilykady.com and it's Kady, as well as you can find me on Instagram. It's I am Emily Kady or YouTube. And it's Emily Kady, I think spiritual medium on. But you can just search Emily Kady and I pop up.
Perfect. And I'll put a link to your socials and your website. That way people can find you easier. Now, Emily, before we go, if there is one key takeaway that you would like the audience to gain from your experiences in our conversation today, what would that be?
Hmm. You are worth taking the time to really just discover who you are on a soul level, really knowing your true essence and allowing your natural spiritual gifts just to develop so that you can have the impact that you want to have, not only in your own life, but your loved ones' lives as well as the world. You are worth it, and the world needs you.
That was a beautiful message, Emily. Thank you so much for closing us on that beautiful note. And thank you again for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.